What's going on, everybody, at the Rush Hour Sports Network? It is yours truly, Jay Smooth. It is great to be back. It is the official post-draft show, folks. The 2022 draft is in the books, and of course, since it's all in the books, we are here to wrap it all up, talk about it, and of course, kind of unravel all of the craziness and confusion that went down from the draft. And here to help do that is my co-host with me week in and week out, B Money. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, bro. Oh, also, this reminds me, quick note, too. Your boy B Money was, speaking of, while we're on the sports network, spent last week going to Yankee Stadium watching the Yankees play.
Good
Man,
stuff.
it sure is nice up there, bro.
That's
Sure is
awesome.
nice.
That's awesome. It looked like a good scene. Looks like good scenery out there.
Oh, for sure.
Out there in Yankee Stadium, and I will say, pretty. It's a different type of baseball season this year with everything going on, but I gotta say it's good to see that baseball's in full swing now because it felt a little weird with that whole lockout thing before. I'm
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad we got it in full swing. So hey, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself out there. I hope the Orioles didn't embarrass you too bad.
I mean, the Orioles kind of did.
I mean, hey, I figured they would, but I just hope it wasn't too embarrassing. Oh
I
man.
mean, I was up there with some Yankees fans. You see, I was up in New York. A friend, took me to an Orioles game out there, or
Hmm.
took me to a Yankees game. And they happened to be playing the Orioles, which, as you guys know on the sports network, we're Baltimore sports fans. So I was cheering for the Orioles, and they were up 2-0, and it was starting to feel good. And then I think they got like what 3 or 4 errors in one inning. Next thing you know, they had 5 errors, and next thing you know, the Yankees had 10 runs, and that was it.
Yeah, that sounds like the typical Orioles game in 2022.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, no question. But hey, glad you had a good time out there, and hopefully there's some more games we can all explore before baseball season ends because it's starting to get good weather out there. But
Yeah.
definitely. But folks, today we are here to wrap up officially the 2022 draft. It is in the books. All 262 picks have been made. A bunch of crazy moves happened. We saw some all pros get traded and join some new teams. We saw some surprising moves by some teams overall. But we're going to go ahead and just run through all 32. A lot of these players, folks, we're going to be honest with you, we're not experts on them. Uh, but at this point, we're pretty much just going to grade based on whether or not the team fulfilled the needs and positions. Now, we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, they needed linebacker, wide receiver, and corners, of course. And, they needed to replace Chandler Jones and Christian Kirk. But it ends up, let's see, with some of the picks they got a tight end, they got a defensive end, an edge rusher, a nice running back out of USC, got themselves a guard, a DB, random Valdosta State guy, a linebacker, and a guard out of Oklahoma that was a compensatory pick. So their needs were mainly linebacker, wide receiver, corner. They did not really. I guess they kind of addressed linebacker, wide receiver, not so much. They got a tight end, but not a receiver. Corner, they got one DB from a low end Valdosta State school, and I mean, hey, Valdosta State's a nice school, but the competition there is different than when you're like in the SEC or something like that. So I say as far as draft, just based off positions, I don't think the Cardinals really addressed every need. I'm gonna give them like a D, maybe like a C/D grade there because they got a couple good picks there, but not anything that they really fulfilled position wise.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the most eventful draft for the Cardinals, as you said.
Oh,
They did not have a first-round pick in this one. So,
there was technically, I almost forgot this. How could we forget this? They technically fulfilled a wide receiver need when a certain trade was executed between Baltimore and Arizona that saw Hollywood Brown be shipped to the Cardinals in a move that apparently was many weeks in the making, but it was kept quiet by both teams. Part of the deal from the Cardinals was that this was kept quiet until draft night. And yes, in a move that shocked Ravens fans and some other fans alike, Hollywood Brown is going to the Cardinals. But of course, looking at it now, it makes sense. But I want to know your reaction to the move.
Honestly, I'm not really too personal about it. I mean, it was, in some ways it was a surprise, but like you said, like looking back on it, it wasn't. I think it was back in February.
Yes.
That Marquise Brown like deleted all of his Ravens stuff off of his Instagram, and
that's true.
Normally, anytime when an athlete does that, that means one of two things is about to happen. Either number one, they're getting a contract extension, or number two, they're getting traded.
That's true. And you know what? It's funny you say that. That's kind of like the new move now. Like when you see a player's social media scrubbed all of a sudden of like team, them being for the team and everything. When you see that happen, it's almost like, oh shit, like that's like the signal that something's going down. It's like the new shot heard around the world kind of thing.
For sure.
And
so
actually,
once that happened, you had a feeling that Hollywood something was going to happen, and there was maybe some thought that the Ravens might extend him, but I had doubts and was hoping that they wouldn't, because I think Hollywood is okay, but I don't think he's a star receiver worth being paid a lot of money.
I agree. I agree with that. And you know what's funny? He was never really meant to be a blocking receiver. Like he was a receiver inside of a run first type of system, because I mean, let's be honest, when you have Lamar back there, running is going to be a big priority. So I don't think he was too keen on that necessarily. And actually, Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown threw for a combined 10 touchdowns in one season when they were playing together at Oklahoma. So it only makes sense that he went out there. And actually, speaking of the Cardinals, one of the main reasons this move was made was in response to a piece of news that we learned during the draft that star receiver DeAndre Hopkins tested positive for PEDs, and he's going to be out for 6 games, the first 6 games of the regular season. And as a result, the Cardinals needed to make this move, and it makes sense on both parties. And actually, something that I think is very important to mention here for the Ravens, we're actually going to get our wish in a way. We're going to start to see some of these younger guys step up now that you have Hollywood Brown out of the way. We'll talk about that when we get to the Ravens, but it's a move. It's a move that benefits the younger guys because they get to step up, and it's a move that benefits Hollywood because he's reunited with his old quarterback from college. And
yeah, I think also in general with that, for me, Hollywood was never a fit for the Ravens system. You talk about it with the blocking stuff, but I think just in general, granted, he's best friends with Lamar, and that's how he fit in. But like, as far as like the scheme and the offense and the way that we are doing things, and even now, as the Ravens in the last season or so have been trying to develop more and more of a passing game, I just don't see Hollywood really being the receiver the Ravens need. While I think out in Arizona, he's perfect for that system. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually ends up having like a career year out there.
I agree, man. It really feels like kind of the perfect match in a way, because you're putting together a duo that threw for double-digit touchdowns in college, and they still have that rapport from the past. And plus, with Arizona's high rate, like air raid, high-powered offense, Hollywood Brown can now be the deep threat that we wanted him to be in Baltimore. And let's be honest, it's not like he didn't get the opportunities, because there were some times where Hollywood has
dropped quite a few passes.
Oh yeah, the man has dropped wide open passes. He's dropped wide open touchdowns. So again, it's not like for lack of opportunity, but I gotta say, it's just very interesting that Hollywood is probably now going to get a lot more passes than ever before. Now with that opportunity, let's just hope this time though he starts to catch a lot of them. But I gotta say though,
the good thing
for
him is that with more passes coming his way,
right,
by default he's gonna have more opportunities.
Yes, he will. He will have a lot more opportunities. I gotta say, man, very eventful draft for the Arizona Cardinals, despite the fact that the picks wise, they fulfilled some needs, but I think it was a lot of the behind the scenes moves that got their attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And then let's move on to our next team, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this was a very interesting team, an interesting draft, because I got to be honest, I like what they did here. They, quarterback, linebacker, receiver, the three main positions. They got Drake London, who is an exceptional wideout at USC. One thing USC can produce, they can produce weapons. Whether it's a running back like a Reggie Bush, Lendell White, whether it's wide. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good one right there. And whether it's wide receivers. The one thing USC's never produced is quarterbacks, but weapons, they always produce good weapons and good defense. And Drake London is going to be a good one for the Falcons. I imagine he'll be day one starter with Marcus Mariota. Let's see, the edge rusher, of course, they got one out of Penn State. He's a good one. They got a good linebacker from Troy Anderson from Montana State. Not the biggest name, but he's one of those small school type of warriors that's going to step up and probably end up fighting for a starting spot, maybe even get one. Now, this pick was interesting. Round 3, pick 10. One of the quarterbacks I had told everyone about in terms of one to keep your eye on, Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati goes to Atlanta. I love this pick, bro. The Matt Ryan is sent to Indianapolis. They bring in Marcus Mariota, but Marcus Mariota clearly not going to be the future, clearly not brought in to be the guy, to be the franchise. So why not have him? I'd say, why not have Marcus pretty much play out the entire season and then have Desmond Ridder sit on the bench and develop? Because Desmond Ridder led Cincinnati on one of their best seasons in many, many, many years. They went all the way to the college football playoff. They were skull-dragged in the playoff, but, I mean, what else is going to happen when you play Alabama? You know what I mean? When you play them out the gate. When you're a small school and you're fed to the dynasty and Nick Saban, you're going to get curb stomped. That's just kind of like, standard issue. But with that being said, Desmond Ridder is still exceptional. Very exceptional. I love this pick for Atlanta. My hope for Desmond is that he's able to sit. My fear for him is that Mariota, say, gets injured early and they throw Desmond Ridder to the Wolves. I hope to God that doesn't happen. I hope maybe they can find some other veteran quarterback to come in and fulfill the spot just in case that happens. But all I got to say is this. It is 100% rebuild time for Atlanta, and I feel like they got themselves a good piece with Desmond Ridder. Moving on, though, D'Angelo Malone is a good piece. Tyler Ellinger, solid running back from BYU. I think he'll be a good one in the backfield. And then they got a couple Georgia players in a guard and a tight end, so a couple local people that get to stay within the state. So overall, I got to give Atlanta a B for this one. I think they did very good. I love the Desmond Ridder pick, and I love the Drake London picks especially. Solid wideout for the future, and then, of course, a solid quarterback for the future. And I got to say, if Desmond Ridder is given a legit chance to develop, he's going to be one of the quarterbacks to look out for in the future. I don't know how good he'll be in terms of league progress, in terms of, all up against the better quarterbacks in the whole league, but I think he's going to be a good one for the Falcons for many years to come. So I'm certainly all over that. What do you think about this draft for him?
Yeah, I agree with your grade of B. To me, the most interesting thing here, we talk a whole bunch about Desmond Ridder being picked in the 3rd round. But what's so interesting about this, and we'll get to this later, is the fact that Ridder was picked before Malik Willis.
Yes.
The Falcons had the option to go Malik Willis, and they chose Ridder over him. So the Falcons see something in Desmond Ridder over the rest of the quarterbacks out there, because Desmond Ridder, I believe, was the 2nd quarterback taken in this draft.
He was. So, he was number 2, and believe it or not, bro, that was a shock to many people because Malik Willis fell hard, and we're gonna get to the team that he fell to a little later, but Yeah, man, he fell pretty deep in the draft, and it's weird because a lot of teams really could have used him. Like, I guess maybe some of these teams are banking on free agency, but it's strange. Like, I thought the Panthers would have done it because apparently the Baker Mayfield deal fell apart, so I thought maybe they would be in the running. I thought maybe a couple other teams would be in the running, like a Seattle, but yeah, very strange, man. Desmond Ritter is the first one off, but I gotta say though, not a bad pick for Atlanta. I'm glad they took the leap. I thought Malik Willis was gonna be maybe their pick, but them going with Desmond is actually a safe one, and he's gonna develop into something special.
Yeah, and like you said, I think the biggest worry I have with him, especially with Atlanta and their situation, is them thrusting Ritter into the starting job at some point before the season ends.
Yes, that's the one thing I'm hoping they don't do. I would love it if Atlanta were to sign maybe one more quarterback, like maybe some sort of cheap veteran that's gonna come in and be like the backup for the season. That's what I would hope Atlanta would do. I don't know if they're gonna keep three quarterbacks, but if they do, that would be ideal just for the sake of protecting Ritter because I don't think Ritter playing this year will be a good idea. He's got to be a guy that'll come off the bench next year. You let him do like Mahomes, let him sit on the bench for a year, and then next year you got to throw him in there. Or maybe toward the end of the year, you let him play the final 2 games of the season just to sort of evaluate his progress and take it from there. So, very interesting times ahead for Atlanta. But let's move on to Baltimore, though, bro. We got a lot. We got quite a bit to discuss here. Not too much though, but quite a bit. The top needs for the Ravens were linebacker, corner, and offensive lineman. Now, let's go ahead through these picks. The first pick for the Ravens, Kyle Hamilton. He was a safety from Notre Dame. I love it. 6'4", 220. He's a guy. He's a plug and play guy. Put him in at safety. Put him in at linebacker. Put him in the slot as a corner. He will get it done. He could drop back into coverage. He's an excellent blitzer. Great tackler. He has a lot of quickness for a guy of his size. He's a big guy. 6'4", 220. That's not a small person. Not a small safety at all. I will say, little surprising that the Ravens went safety first. But my guess is when you have a guy like Kyle Hamilton on the board, you have to go for it. That was kind of the thing that I alluded to during the draft pick. He was one of those players where, like, if he's on the board, it'd be kind of weird to pass over him. And, Washington passed over him, which I thought was very strange. They needed a DB. Minnesota traded out of that spot with a division rival, which I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're literally trading with division rivals. Who the hell does that? Who trades with the Lions and the Packers when you have to face them every year? It's like the new Vikings GM regime has no idea that they're rivals with the Lions or Packers or something. But anyways, they trade out of the spot, and Hamilton ends up falling at 14. I personally like the pick. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at first, like you said, surprised that they would go for and pick a safety, but to me, it becomes one of those things where it's guaranteed that the Ravens are a team that will always go best player available, regardless if it immediately helps them or not. Let's not forget that, you still have Chuck Clark on the roster, who is essentially the man who's been calling the plays for the defense the last couple of years. And then you have Marcus Williams, who they just signed in free agency to a big contract. So they have their starting safeties already, but I like this draft pick of Kyle Hamilton because there's a couple of things that could happen now that the Ravens could do.
Well, there is
the
one
first thing is that there's rumors that Chuck Clark is now on the trade market, that they
Yeah.
can probably get something back for him.
Yeah,
But
because
one other part of that too is that honestly, depending on exactly what they're trying to trade for him, I'd actually rather them not trade Chuck Clark. And the main reason why is because what the Ravens could do now on defense is they could throw Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams back there as two free safeties, rangy back there in this pass-happy NFL,
right.
especially considering that teams in our division like the Bengals and the Browns with Deshaun Watson exist, having
Right.
two deep, rangy safeties would help our defense tremendously. And then that way you could maybe throw Chuck Clark in the box full time, maybe have him as a linebacker hybrid full time, which is where I think he's best suited. and where his strength is. Especially because I'd say the inside linebacker is kind of a little bit of a weakness because Patrick Queen hasn't really developed like we wanted him to yet. So, like, it's an option that if the Ravens don't trade Chuck Clark, I could see that being a role for him. Kind of being like a hybrid linebacker, nickel corner type of deal.
Yeah, that's most likely where they're gonna put him. But like you said, that is if they don't trade him. The feeling is if that Chuck Clark's gone, because if you take a safety this high, you're taking a safety this high with the intention on starting him. So yeah, if they don't want to hold on to Chuck Clark and put him at that spot like you mentioned, then he's probably going to be out of here, which is a shame.
Nevertheless, I believe this is Chuck Clark's last year of his contract anyway.
Yeah, so that is true. Even if he's not shipped out, he could.
Even if he does stay, you can guarantee the Ravens will not re-sign him.
Exactly, and there's a good chance he might be slowly worked out of the rotation. You know what I mean? Because it's his last year of the deal. They'll slowly work in the rookie because, trust me, Mike McDonald wants Kyle Hamilton. He loves versatility and he loves versatile players. And he wanted Kyle Hamilton for this reason. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do there at the spot. That's why I thought getting a safety that high was an interesting spot. Now, pick 25, the best center in the draft. This pissed off a lot of teams, but it made Baltimore fans very happy. Tyler Lindenbaum, former wrestler, by the way, also as well. Gotta say, love the pick. Best safety in the entire draft, the highest rated one. He has everything you want, including he has the tools to play the position, and he has the tools to have longevity at the position. I think we found a long-term solution to be there in the center for many years to come, all depending on his development, of course. But I personally like the pick because you need a guy like this at the spot. You need that Marshall Yanda type because we haven't really had that since he left. So I think with Linderbaum, if he develops the way he's going to be day one starter, but if he develops the way we believe, he's going to be our Marshall Yanda. He's going to be the guy in the middle for the next, 10 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, hopefully this is your guy who, he'll be here for the 5 years of the rookie contract and then gets a second contract. So hopefully he's your cornerstone franchise center for the next 10 years, ideally. And as you said, he's expected to be a day one starter because we have a hole at center.
Right.
And here's your guy that we traded Hollywood Brown for. So a lot of expectations and hoping the best out of him.
Absolutely. And the next pick has a lot of people excited, but comes with a little bit of a caveat. See, David Ojabo, edge rusher from Michigan, one of my favorite picks of the entire draft. I love that we got him. This was a guy that you told me that you wanted once he fell to the second round, and I had a feeling he'd be the first pick taken there in the second as well. Again, excellent pick. I love the fact that we have an edge rusher now, but the only caveat is that he's injured, and he's recovering from an injury. And from what I actually heard today, his timetable is looking like maybe October, November, possibly December. So we're not going to get him at the start of the season, but there's no question that when he's ready to go, Ojabo is going to be that threatening pass rusher that we need. Hopefully, when he comes back from his injury, he is still able to be as ferocious as he was before it. But nonetheless, I love the pick because we needed that. Obviously, the Ravens still need to address that spot just because of his injury. But nonetheless, if Ojabo does develop into what we need him to be, then this pick is absolutely going to work out for a long time.
Yeah, I love the pick, as you mentioned before. As soon as he started to slide down draft boards because he ended up he tears ACL at his pro day.
That is correct.
Where previously he was projected to be like a top 15 pick, and he ends up falling to the second round.
Yep, he was supposed to go number 15.
And the writing was on the wall. He's from Michigan. The Ravens.
Yes.
New defensive coordinator was his defensive coordinator in Michigan, Mike McDonald. So this is Mike's guy. This is the Ravens doing him a favor, doing him a solid. Like you said, he's not projected to be back until around October, November, which tells me that he won't be back at practice until October. November, but he may not play until probably November, December.
Correct.
So
correct.
That's fine. That's fine. That means he'll hopefully have some fresh legs at the end of the season that we can use as a pass rusher. But to me, it's not about this year. To me, this pick about Ojabo, it's about assuming that their development goes well. This is about pairing Ojabo with Odafe Owe, our first round pick last year, for the next 4 seasons.
This is very true.
Having a threatening pass rushing duo for the next few years.
Absolutely, and that's what the Ravens need, especially. We've needed that threatening pass rush for a while. We haven't had it, but I think with Ojabo, I think he's going to add on to it, and we'll finally get something. We'll finally get it. Now we're going to get to picks where it's going to be hit or miss here. Travis Jones.
By the way, before you do, as also a note, because you mentioned about the Ravens adding on, it was announced as news that the Ravens assigned a unrestricted free agent tender to Justin Houston. It's worth also noting that the Kansas City Chiefs did the same to Melvin Ingram on the same day, a couple days ago. But essentially what this tender means is that both players on their respective teams, that they've kind of been offered a contract, if you will, kind of like restricted free agents. They've been offered a tendered a contract that they have until training camp to sign. In the meantime, they are able though to negotiate to sign with other teams. But if they do not sign with another team, then they will be with their respective Ravens and Chiefs come training camp. But if they do sign with another team, then that means that they will be worth a compensatory pick for each team.
Definitely. Thank you for that side note. Certainly something to look out for. And yeah, when training camp or like July hits, then we'll certainly know where their futures are going to lie. But yes, moving on to round 3, we have Travis Jones, defensive tackle from Connecticut. Just a defensive tackle, not too much is known about him, but we'll see what he does in training camp.
I'll say one thing about Travis Jones, or what I have seen, that he was someone who, similarly to Ojabo, was expected to be drafted much, much higher.
Right.
Like, was supposed to be an early second-round pick, potentially even late first-round pick. So
yeah, he was another one.
Hopefully he works out and lives up to that potential.
Absolutely. Not sure why he slid down to round 3, but yeah, that he was another one that was projected a little higher and ended up sliding. Let's see, we have Daniel Falil? Yeah, Falil. Offensive tackle that was in a trade from the Giants. We got him from Minnesota. Another tackle on the line. Usually Minnesota, in the Big Ten schools like Iowa, Minnesota, they produce a lot of good offensive linemen, and usually Minnesota is a good school with good offensive linemen, so I think he's going to slide right in and compete for a spot. We have Jalen Armour Davis, who's a cornerback from Alabama. I think this might have been a 4th-round steal right here. I like Jalen Armour Davis. He was one of the corners that stood out during Alabama's run in the playoff, actually, and actually no, not during the playoff, during the season. And during his time there, he's actually proven himself to be a formidable corner. I think it'll be interesting to see him compete in training camp and where he's going to be slotted in. Now, things get interesting here. 2 tight ends in the 4th round. We have 4 4-round picks. First of all, let's get this out the way. Jordan Stout, punter from Penn State, he is going to 110% replace Sam Cook if he is as good as advertised. I'm sure the Ravens already worked him out for drafting him, so they know what he can do. But it appears as if he will be Sam Cook's replacement, and this is Cook's last year on the contract, right?
I'm not sure about what his contract situation is, but what I do know about Sam Cook is that he turns 40 years old in August.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which means his days in the NFL are numbered. So
absolutely, and he's been in the league for a long time and a punter for us for a long time, so we relied on him for a good while, and now it looks like Jordan Stout will be replacing him. Not this season, maybe next season. And also what's interesting in round number 4, we get yet another corner in Darion Williams from Houston. I like Darion Williams. I'm sorry, Damarion Williams. Excuse me, Damarion Williams. I like him because I've seen him in Houston, and I've made a good amount of money on Houston this past season. He was one of their lead corners on their defense and one of the leaders in the secondary, and was somebody that was a bit of a ball hawk. So very interesting to see where they're going to slide him in as well. And we take 2 tight ends in the 4th round. First, Charlie Kolar from Iowa State. He's more of the giant. He's more of the big body. Not the most athletic, not a basketball player like an Antonio Gates, but he's a big body like a Gronkowski. You're going to put him in there. He's going to compete for every ball thrown up there. And because he's a big guy, he's going to snatch balls away. He's a very intelligent player. And overall, he's going to be that big body tight end that we need between the sticks, between the hash marks. We're going to need somebody big down at the goal line who can snatch the ball out of the air with 3 to 4 defenders around him, and I think Charlie Kolar can be that guy. Isaiah likely is going to be the basketball player. He's more of the long-rangey tight end who plays like a receiver. Charlie Kolar's the better blocker between the two, but Isaiah is an amazing project because of his physical abilities as well as the fact that he plays like a basketball player that's out there in a way. You have Kolar with the rebounds, snatching, passes like rebounds. You have Isaiah who's more long-rangey and has the athletic ability. You can put him at the receiver spot. You can put him at the tight end spot. If the Ravens decide to go 2 tight ends, like kind of the early 2000 offense type shit, then I think Kolar and Likely will be good candidates to fit the spot. Now, not sure what it's going to mean for, Mark Andrews. I'm pretty sure Andrews will be fine, but like Nick Boyle, not really sure where he's going to stand, or some of the other types.
I think that's the end of Nick Boyle.
Yeah, I think it might be. That's kind of what I was thinking too. Andrew's going to survive this, but Boyle is the one who's probably going to suffer for this. If you get 2 tight ends in the 4th, one of them has got to go. You know what I mean? I think Boyle's going to be the one to take the hit here.
Boyle hasn't been the same since 2019, I believe. I know he's had some injury troubles the last couple of years. I think this is it for him.
Absolutely.
Also, keep in mind the Ravens have Josh Oliver still on the roster as well.
Yes, they do. That pretty much spells the end for Boyle. And then, of course, Tyler Batty, funny name, Batty, Tyler Batty, is the running back from Missouri. I imagine he's just going to be slotted in to that spot that Justice Hill used to have. By the way, it sucks for Justice Hill. He's going to get the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, but, it's time.
Yeah, he never panned. It's funny because out of college he was so fun to watch, but he never really captured the magic from college at Oklahoma State. It never translated for the Ravens. It might translate with another team, but over here it never quite hit that level. So yeah, it looks like Tyler Batty's going to be replacing him.
Yeah. Furthermore, another note I'd like to add, you talked about the 2 tight ends the Ravens drafted in the 4th round. It wasn't supposed to be that way. Right. Apparently, before they drafted Isaiah Likely at the end of the round, they were actually intending to draft wide receiver Calvin Austin out of Memphis, but Pittsburgh took him a pick before. And according to reports, there were Ravens scouts that were literally cursing out the room when they saw the Steelers had picked their guy right before them.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you know what? In a way, it might be a blessing in disguise because when it comes to receivers, the Ravens kind of suck at drafting them. So, if anything, the Steelers may have just taken a bullet for them. But I guess we'll find out this season, huh?
Well, but the Steelers actually do know how to develop wide receivers, don't they?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. So maybe that. Well, actually, it might have been a dodge bullet for that guy, the guy that got drafted. Technically, if anybody dodged a bullet, yeah, it's more for that guy. So yeah, at least he'll be developed. But yeah, that does kind of suck. And that's actually 2 draft picks. They wanted Jordan Davis too, and the fucking Eagles snatched him.
Yeah.
So that's 2 draft picks they were robbed on, unfortunately. But let's jump over to Buffalo real quick. Now, by the way, folks, for the rest of these teams, we're likely just going to skim through these because a lot of these people we don't fucking know, but we will talk about the players we do know. Cornerback, wideout, running back. By the way, Ravens draft grade, what do you give them overall? Overall, I'm going to give them an A because they hit every need. There's still a couple needs they still need to. A couple holes they need to fill. But actually, you know what? I'll give them a B. I'll give them a B because it wasn't a knock out the park, but it was very good.
For me, I give them an A. You know, even though they made some weird picks, you know, I feel like it's gonna work out, and that they got a lot of value with the draft picks that they did have. You know, they didn't need a safety in Kyle Hamilton, but I think he's gonna make the defense phenomenally better. I think Tyler Linderbaum fills a need. Ojabo fills a need and is going to improve the team. I mean, by drafting Ojabo, they essentially have 3 first-round picks.
Pretty much. And
Travis Jones, if he lives up to the hype that he was supposed to have, you know, he might be a 4th technical first-round pick the Ravens got in this draft. So
that is very true.
I'm going with A. And then you already talked about your guy, Armour Davis, out of Alabama.
Right.
You know, so...
And by the way, him and Demarion, I think are going to be very good because they're both ball hawking corners that are going to provide some excitement. So I think we're in for a treat.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now over in Buffalo, I'm going to skim through these guys because I don't know who they are. Oh, this first name the last name may sound familiar to you. Kaiir Elam, cornerback from Florida. The family member of Matt Elam, I believe cousin. Either that or brother. I'll say this. If he plays anything like his brother, Buffalo's gonna fucking hate him.
Matt Elam was his uncle.
Oh, uncle? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow, we are old, aren't we? Jesus.
Well, Matt Elam, you ready to feel old? Yeah. Matt Elam was drafted 9 years ago, bro.
Jesus. And 9 years ago. So this guy's uncle was drafted 9 years ago. That's so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's insanity right there. So now his nephew, Matt Elam's nephew, is the first pick taken by the Bills at 23. That lets me know that he is likely going to be starting day one. So we're going to find out soon if he is better than his uncle or if he's just as bad.
By the way, shout out to Matt Elam, who's playing in the Canadian Football League right now.
Oh, yeah, shout out to Matt Elam. And I'm glad he got himself a job in Canada. I thought he'd be playing in fan-controlled football with Terrell Owens and Johnny Manziel, but thank fuck he didn't do that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, no, it's a good pick because they lost Levi Wallace and some other corners in free agency. They needed another corner to pair with Tre'Davious White, so
yes, they
did.
Filled
the need immediately for the Bills.
100%. Running back round 2, James Cook, running back out of Georgia. They needed him because you and I talked about it before. Buffalo has always had everything but a running game. Well, actually, they've had a running game. It was Josh Allen. But when your quarterback's the running game, that's a problem unless your name is Lamar Jackson and you're the Baltimore Ravens. But other than that, you should not have your quarterback as the lead runner. So I like the fact that they drafted James Cook. He is going to be serviceable for the Bills, likely going to be a starter there. Terrell Bernard, nice linebacker from Baylor. Khalil Shakur, wide receiver from Boise State. I remember when Boise State used to be relevant. Now nobody knows who they are. The Bills, Matt Ariza. They got a punter. Okay, that's random. Christian Benford, cornerback out of Villanova. I forgot Villanova had football. I thought they only had basketball. Luke Tenuta, offensive tackle from Virginia Tech, and then Balon Spector, one hell of a name, linebacker from Clemson. I mean, it's an okay draft. They needed cornerbacks, wideouts, and receivers, and they nailed all 3. So I'm just gonna give them a B for Buffalo. What do you give them?
Yeah, roughly about the same. B plus, maybe. I mean, at least I think their first 2 picks, they get 2 people that can start right away with Elam and Cook.
Absolutely. Oh, speaking of NFL, by the way, quick shout out to John Harbaugh, who they keep showing in the AEW audience. That's very nice. And I believe a couple of Ravens are behind him. That's pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, I'd say about a B for the Bills. They did all right. Bills Mafia, though, you're going to have to get some revenge this season. So hopefully these draft picks will help you get it. Let's move on to Carolina. Oh, Kakalaki. They need quarterback. They need an offensive lineman, defensive lineman. Let's see if they did just that. Defensive lineman, they got in Ikem Ekwonu from NC State, offensive tackle. Matt, now, this was very interesting to me. Matt Corral. They had Malik Willis on the board. They had.
Yeah, all of us also picked before Malik Willis.
Yeah, they had. That's what I mean. Like, they had Malik Willis. They had Desmond Ridder. They had Sam Howell, who, by the way, got picked up by a team from North Carolina. I'll talk about that a little later.
Ridder was already, well, I guess by this point, Ridder was already picked.
Actually, yeah, that's true. Well, actually, yeah, but Carolina skipped on him in round 1, which is what was very interesting to me because I thought they would go quarterback first. But they decided to go with Matt Corral. I like the pick because Matt Corral had a very good senior season at Ole Miss. His combine was kind of trash, but his pro day was excellent. I will say this about Matt Corral. He is a quarterback that needs some seasoning a bit. I would say put him behind Sam Darnold. Let Darnold get the breakfast cereal beaten out of him, and put Corral in there at the end of the season, maybe next year. Let Corral develop. That's the key word. Now, unfortunately, we're talking about Matt Rule here, a defensive specialist. He may not give a single shit about developing Matt Corral, which is what I'm afraid of for him because he's going to a defensive-minded coach. But with that being said, as long as they let this kid sit on the bench and grow, he's going to be just fine. I like the pick for him. They certainly needed a game-managing quarterback of the future. Matt Corral is good enough to not screw it up. If you give him and that's the thing about Mississippi State. Mississippi State was a team with a good defense. The offense was good, but the defense was stellar, and that's what won games for him. If you give Matt Corral a great defense, which is what the Panthers are trying to develop now with their rebuild. If they give him a good defense, then I think the kid can prosper when it becomes his time. So, good pick for Carolina. They needed it. What this told me is this also told me that the Baker Mayfield deal fell apart. That was what I read, and also it made a lot of sense when they made this pick. So, Baker was not going to Carolina after all, which kind of sucks for him because now he's stuck behind basically being the opening act for Deshaun Watson later this season. Sucks to be Baker. Brandon Smith, linebacker out of Penn State. I mean, okay. Then they get an edge rusher from Virginia Tech and Amir Barno. Cade Mays is the guard out of Tennessee. I mean, okay, another O-lineman. And then a corner in Kalen Barnes. So OLDL and quarterback. Well, they addressed it kind of. I'm going to give them a B, though, because we just need to see what these players are going to be. I can't really judge too much, but at least they got the needs that they fulfilled. What do you give the Carolina Panthers?
I mean, it was okay.
Yeah.
it was okay.
You know what? I gave him a B, but I'm thinking I'll probably just give him a C because Corral's the only pick I really like out of that. The rest I don't really care too much about. So I'll give him a C. Give him a middle of the road.
That's fine with me.
Middle of the road, all right. So let's go. Let's move on to the Bears. We actually do have a Bears fan that does watch this week in and week out, so they'll be interested in this. Now, cornerback, wide out. Very simple for them, for the Bears that is, because of course they have Justin Fields as their quarterback and they need to build around him. Let's see.
No first round pick for the Bears.
No first round picks at all. Their first selection was not until the 7th. It was not until number 7 of round number 2, where they got their corner in Kyler Gordon. Round 2, they also got Jaquan Brisker, who is a safety out of Penn State. So they went pure defense. Velus Jones from Tennessee is a wide receiver that they picked up. Braxton Jones, offensive tackle from Southern Utah State. Goodness gracious. And then they get an edge rusher, Dominique Robinson from Miami, Ohio. Zach Thomas, guard out of San Diego State. Tristan Ebner, running back out of Baylor. Doug Kramer, center out of Illinois. Tyree Carter, guard out of Southern. Elijah Hicks, DB out of California. Trenton Gill, punter out of NC State. Very random picks for the Bears. They got, let's see, they got the corner that they needed. They picked up only one wide receiver, and they picked up a guard, actually two guards, a center, one offensive tackle. Yeah, so they fulfilled their needs, I guess. They only got one receiver and like one corner and another DB, but I'll give them a C. Middle of the, well, actually, yeah, I'll give them a C. Nothing too sexy here. They just kind of stuck to the script a bit, got what they needed. Now it's time to see if these guys are gonna actually be an impact or be anything important in the years to come. So I'll give them a C.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of late value, hopefully, for them coming.
Yeah, a lot of late value, and also a punter as their final pick. Another random punter off the board. Not too many, a lot of punters.
Majority of their picks rounds 5 through 7. So
that's true. This was a depth draft. That is for damn sure. Going to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see. They needed a corner, a D lineman, and a tight end. They kept it short here. They got Daxton Hill, a safety. They got Cam Taylor Britt, a corner out of Nebraska. Hopefully this means goodbye Eli Apple, because good God, I can't stand to see that guy as a starter anymore. Zachary Carter, defensive end out of Florida. Cordell Volson, guard out of North Dakota State. Tyson Anderson, a safety out of Toledo. So that is two safeties, one from Michigan, one from Toledo. And then an edge rusher in Jeffrey Gunter out of Coastal Carolina. Their needs were corner, defensive line, and tight end. I mean, offensive linemen should have been part of that too to protect fucking Burrow, but they got their guard.
Yeah, but
they got their guard though.
So many guys in free agency that offensive line wasn't really a need anymore.
Yeah, they did get a guard though, so it's not like they were completely empty-handed from that. I mean, they did okay. They did not get a tight end though. The tight end was a need, and they did not do that. But they got the corner and shit they needed. And they got the defensive pieces. So I'll give them a middle of the road C because I mean, hey, no tight end, and wait, did they get a D lineman? Well, they got a defensive end and an edge rusher. I guess that counts. Yeah, I'll give them a C.
I mean, I might go a little bit higher, more like a BB plus. So they didn't get a tight end, but they also signed Aidan Hutchinson free agency.
Yeah, that is a good free agent move, but like in terms of just draft moves,
So they did quietly pick up someone to kind of fill that hole.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest question mark for the Bengals is the Daxton Hill pick in the first round. Because if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm scared to death of the future meaning of, does drafting Daxton Hill mean the Bengals are not going to pay Jesse Bates?
That's the thing they're going to have to think about, because if they don't... Right, exactly. They're going to have to think about that. And it's going to suck if they don't pay him, because
if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm hoping the answer to that question is no. I'm hoping Daxton Hill, because Daxton Hill has some versatility, that he's really just there as another piece, and that you're still going to pay Jesse Bates.
Right.
And like you said, hopefully Cam Taylor Britt is someone that can be used to replace Eli Apple.
So, yeah, because I can't stand to see Eli Apple as a starter in this league anymore. He's that bad. But let's see. Yeah. Let's go to Cleveland. Defensive line, wide receiver, and linebacker. Martin Emerson, corner out of Mississippi State. They went with corner again. And they didn't even get a pick till round 3. So round 1 and 2, Cleveland said, fuck it. We don't want any part. And I believe they traded those away anyway, I believe. Let's see.
Because of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, because of the Deshaun Watson trade, absolutely. So yeah, DL, linebacker, and receiver. So let's see. Defensive end, Alex Wright. Wide receiver, David Bell. Defensive tackle, Perrion Winfrey. Cade York, a kicker from LSU. Ugh. I don't know why you would draft a kicker. You could just sign one of those. Jerome Ford, running back out of Cincinnati. Mike Woods, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Isaiah Thomas. Goodness, that name is way too common in sports. Edge rusher from Oklahoma. And then Dawson Deaton, center out of Texas Tech. So they go center, edge rusher, wide receiver, running back, kicker, DT, wide receiver, defensive end, and corner. They needed a DL linebacker and a receiver. Let's see. No linebacker, but they did get some defensive linemen, and they did get 2 receivers. Not a bad draft for the Browns, at least. Not a bad one. I'm willing to give them a B because they certainly got they certainly fulfilled some of the positions they needed. Not linebacker, but they got just about every other one.
I'm only going to C for now because they didn't have a pick until round 3.
Yeah, that's another thing. Having a pick till round 3 will affect you a bit. That's one of the reasons I dropped them down, actually. Because other than not having a pick till round 3, I don't hate what they did here. Some good stuff, though. Let's go to Dallas. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and a wideout. Let's see. Defensive tackle of Tulsa, Tyler Smith. D. Williams, edge rusher, Mississippi. Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver, South Alabama. They get a tight end out of Wisconsin, a tackle out of North Dakota. Let's see, Deron Bland, corner out of Fresno. Shout out to Fresno. I know one of the homies is from Fresno watching this. Damon Clark, linebacker, LSU. John Ridgeway, defensive tackle, Arkansas. Devin Harper, linebacker, Oklahoma State. Now, nothing jumps out as interesting or anything like that. No names or anything, but I mean, hey, offensive lineman, defensive lineman, wideout. They go O-line, they go D-line, they do get a wideout and some other weapons. Nothing too out of the ordinary, but if anything, they at least drafted for needs. So I mean, you got to give the Cowboys maybe a B or a C. I'm thinking middle of the road type of grade. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking of B. I feel like Tyler Smith was a little bit of a reach.
Right.
So
I agree. He definitely was a reach. I certainly would not have gone that far too. Let's see. Denver Broncos tight end and corner is all they needed. Let's see. They get an edge rusher from Oklahoma, tight end from UCLA. They get Demarion Mathis, corner from Pittsburgh. They get a DT from Iowa State. A safety, Delarian Turner Yell. His last name is Turner Yell and hyphen. That's one hell of a name. Safety from Oklahoma. Montrell Washington, wide receiver from Samford. Let's see, a center from Washington, a DT from Wisconsin, and a corner from Wisconsin. So, not bad on the picks for the Broncos. Let's see, they had their biggest. They had a couple big needs there for tight end and corner. They got a tight end from UCLA. They drafted 2 corners, one in the 4th round, one in the 7th. So they got that, and they got some other pieces. I mean, nothing too crazy for the Broncos here. I'm willing to go like middle of the pack, B or C.
Yeah, I'm going B. Once again, they also did not have a first-round pick as well. So
yeah, another team trading out of the first round. That is going to be a theme, by the way. Good amount of teams did that. Yeah, no, a lot of teams like literally executing trades just to get the hell out of the first round of this draft. Tells you a lot. Let's see, the Detroit Lions, oh lord. Quarterback, DL, and corner. Oh my goodness. Now, they fulfilled just about every need but quarterback. I am surprised they did not try to go for Malik Willis in the first round when they found their way back in there at number 12. They go Aidan Hutchinson, which is a great pick at number 2. He is going to be a fantastic story for them. He is the hometown kid that gets to stay home. They are going to build that Detroit defense around him. They already have some good pieces on defense, but now that they have a presence on the defensive line, that defense is going to be even better, and they are going to build something special with Hutchinson. Jameson Williams going to be a great offensive piece for a bum Jared Goff. Let's see, they get a defensive end from Kentucky, a safety from Illinois, James Mitchell, tight end from Virginia Tech, Malcolm Rodriguez, a linebacker from Oklahoma State. They go James Houston, edge rusher from Jackson State. Shout out to Deion Sanders. And then, of course, quarterback from Arizona and Chase Lucas. Now, I don't hate what the Lions have done here. The Lions actually have a nice solid draft here. They certainly went after the cornerstone franchise player that they needed to build their defense. So I'm going to give Detroit a B on this one.
I agree with that grade.
Yeah, I think a B is a fair grade. They didn't draft any of the quarterbacks that were available, but I'll give them a B. Very
yeah,
good.
I thought the draft class was solid though.
Absolutely, I think so too. Let's go to Green Bay real quick. Green Bay Packers wideout, linebacker, and offensive line. Oh, they didn't draft a wide receiver till round 2, a guy out of North Dakota State. It's almost as if the Packers hate rookie wide receivers for some reason. They just love those damn veterans. Quay Walker was their first pick, linebacker out of Georgia. Then they went Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Then they went Christian Watson, wide receiver out of North Dakota State. Sean Ryan, OL, offensive lineman out of UCLA. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver out of Nevada, another receiver. Then they went with a lineman out of Wake Forest, offensive lineman, a linebacker out of South Carolina, a safety out of Georgia Tech, a defensive tackle out of Miami, a lineman out of Penn State, and then a wide receiver out of Nebraska. So they drafted 3 wideouts, which is very surprising for Green Bay. They seem to hate rookie wide receivers. But
they needed that cheap depth, though.
I know, right? They needed that cheap depth like hell, and they finally bit the bullet and did it. Hey, not the best draft for the Packers, but it was okay. I'm willing to give them like a C because I thought they were gonna go finally get one of the top speedy receivers in the draft and get a top weapon for Aaron Rodgers, like as high up as they could get, and they did not do that. They went defense. I don't get it.
Yeah, it was surprising that they went.
The thinking
2 picks in a row in the first round.
Yeah, the thinking must be that they're like, you know what, Aaron Rodgers can throw it to anybody. It doesn't matter who we give him, which is not good thinking, not smart. I mean, hey, the guy's the best in the league, but he can't just throw to anybody you give him, you know. And they keep thinking that he will, but I guess the Packers are gonna have to learn it the hard way. Let's go to Houston. Let's see. They needed a lineman, a corner, and an offensive lineman. They reach for Derek Stingley Jr. They needed him, though. But they kind of reached for him. DB out of LSU. Then they get a lineman out of Texas A&M. Texas A&M linemen are always good in Kenyon Green. DB from Baylor. Wideout from Alabama. John Mitchell III. Oh, that's going to be a good weapon for him. Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama. Damian Pierce, running back out of Florida. Defensive tackle out of Stanford. Thomas Booker. Teagan Quintorino, tight end out of Oregon State. And then, of course, Austin Nicholas, offensive lineman out of LSU. Not a bad selection for the Texans. I'm going to give them a BC just because they, like a middle-of-the-road grade, just because they fulfill their needs. But it's the Texans. It's going to be a tough road for them.
Yeah, and like you said, that Stingley pick was a little bit of a reach.
Hell yeah, they reached high as hell for that Stingley pick. I don't understand that one. Going to Indianapolis. Let's see, they need an offensive lineman, wideout, and corner. Alec Pierce was their first pick, wideout out of Cincinnati. Very good pick.
Second round.
Actually, second round, I'm sorry. Very good pick for them. Certainly a pick they needed because, well, not only was he one of the better receivers in the whole draft, he was a receiver that actually was one of the main weapons for Desmond Ridder during their little run of the playoffs. So getting him was a no-brainer. Tight end for Jelani Woods out of, Virginia. Bernhard remained offensive tackle at Central Michigan. Nick Cross, safety out of Maryland. Hell yeah, shout out to Maryland. Good to see a Maryland product get drafted. Eric Johnson, DT out of Missouri State. Then Andrew Ogletree, tight end out of Youngstown State. Then DT from Cincinnati, Curtis Brooks. And then Rodney Thomas, DB out of Yale. So not a bad draft for the Colts. I'm willing to give them a B. It wasn't the most spectacular draft, but they certainly got everybody that they needed as far as I'm concerned. And now it's just time to see if they pan out, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'll give them a middle.
Just okay.
Yeah, I'll give them a middle of the road. I'll give them a B. Going to Jacksonville. They need a linebacker, lineman, receiver. They go number 1 overall. This was a shock. They went with Trevon Walker, defensive end out of Georgia. Did not expect him to be number 1. I thought he was going to go number 2, maybe number 3. But the Jaguars went ahead, took the leap of faith, and they said, hey, we're going to go ahead and start building our defense with this edge rusher. Now, unfortunately, he's going to be walking into a situation that's not the best with the Jaguars because the owner didn't want him and the GM didn't. Actually, no, the owner didn't want him and the coach didn't want him. But the GM was the one who said, draft Trevon Walker. He won that war. So now he's on a team in which the owner and coach don't want him. So that not the best position to be in, but we'll see how it goes for him. Let's see. Devin Lloyd, of course, linebacker, Utah. They get a center out of Kentucky, a linebacker out of Wyoming, and Chad Muma. Snoop Cooner, amazing name, Snoop. Running back out of Mississippi. Gregory Jr., cornerback out of Ouachita Baptist University. Where the hell do you find somebody that plays for them? Where do you go? I was about to say, like, Ouachita Baptist University, that's a very specific school that you to scout.
Arkansas, my bad.
I was about to say, that's a very specific school to fucking look for. My God. Never heard of a player drafted out of there. Probably the only one, too. They'll have to build a statue for that guy. Let's see. Montreric Brown, corner out of Arkansas. So not a bad draft for the Jaguars. Problem is, the Jaguars are a fucking mess. They nailed this draft, though. They nailed the number 1 pick. They nailed some other picks that they made, but the number 1 pick was brilliant. I'm going to give them a high B. Well, I want to give them an A because of the Trayvon Walker grade, but it's the Jaguars, and they're going to find a way to fuck it up, so I'm going to give them a B. I'll give them
I'll go with that. Moving on.
Hell yeah. Let's go to the Chiefs. Wideout, DL, and corner. Trent McDuffie is the name that stands out here. Actually, 2 names stand out here, and McDuffie and George Karlaftis. McDuffie they got at number 21. Interesting they went with the corner. I thought maybe they would have tried to address the Tyreek Hill situation, but I guess they're going to go about that another way.
Well, they went about in the second round. That's what they did.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We're gonna have like that. That's one hell of a gamble. They went with Sky Moore from what they went with a Western Michigan guy, but we'll have to see if he pans out.
Nevertheless, though, I like the Trent McDuffie pick because I feel like this is a Kyle Hamilton situation where Trent McDuffie should have went sooner.
Oh, absolutely.
And him being available at 21, and we already know that the Chiefs secondary is weak.
Right.
Them getting McDuffie at 21, I think, is great for them.
Right, and he was one of the ones I had mentioned as somebody that was probably going to get drafted a little higher, where, like, if he's there, you got to go for him. So I'm glad the Chiefs did it. George Karlaftis they got. He's a good edge rusher. Sky Moore, he's going to be their answer to Tyreek Hill. We're going to have to see if he can be that. He was a good one out of Western Michigan, though. He wasn't a bump. Brian Cook, safety out of Cincinnati. That's a good pick, good safety.
There's your Tyrann Mathieu replacement right there.
Yes, sir, because he just signed.
Technically, I think they already signed Justin Reed in free agency, but there's your future right there.
Yeah, I was about to say that is your future piece. What they signed right there, as you mentioned, was a Band-Aid. But yeah, they drafted themselves a future piece right there. Let's see. We have Leo Chanel, linebacker from Wisconsin. We have a Fayetteville State University corner in Josh Williams. Guard from Kentucky, another corner from Washington State, another running back in Isaiah Pacheco, and then a corner from Marshall. So, a lot of defense, a lot of offensive weapons, defensive weapons. I like this for the Chiefs. I actually want to kind of give them an A because they addressed some of the needs that they really had. I'll give them like
I'll give it an A.
Yeah, I'll give that one an A. For the Raiders, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. They get themselves a guard, a running back in Zamir White from Georgia. He'll be special for them. I like that pick. Even though they already have a solid running back, that's a good one right there, too, to have. Neil Farrell, defensive tackle. So there's their defensive tackle. Then they got another one from Tennessee. There's an offensive tackle from Ohio State. And another running back in Britton Brown. Weird. So they go 2 running backs They get and then they just go offensive line, defensive line. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. No linebackers though, but 2 running backs. that's that's an interesting draft, Raiders. You know?
Yeah. Add on the fact they didn't draft until the 3rd round.
Yeah, that too. I'm glad you pointed that out. Not a pick to the 3rd round. I'm going to give them a C right in the middle. Maybe a D because no linebacker picked to the 3rd round, and they picked 2 running backs when they already have an amazing running back. I'm going to give them like a D there. And we'll see what the Raiders can do about it. Let's see. The Chargers. Offensive line, defensive line, receiver. Let's see what they do. Offensive line, Boston College. A safety from Baylor. Running back from Texas A&M and Isaiah Spiller. By the way, I love Isaiah Spiller. He's gonna be an exciting player for the Chargers. Actually, I love that pick. I think Herbert's gonna enjoy having him as an option back there. Let's see. They get a defensive tackle. They get a lineman, offensive lineman from Georgia. They get a DB from Wake Forest, a DB from Mississippi, and a fullback from Purdue. I think he's the only fullback taken in the draft. Is he not?
He might be. I don't know.
Yeah, Xander Horvath. Never heard of him. From Purdue. I believe he's the only fullback taken. So that's interesting. The Chargers doing something different there. I like that Isaiah Spiller pick a lot. I'm going to go ahead and give the Chargers a B. They got the lineman and, wait, did they get a receiver? Hold on.
They did not.
They did not. So, yeah, I'll have to give them a C. What do you think?
I'm thinking B plus actually. I mean,
B plus,
you talk
okay.
about the Spiller pick, but I think also picking up the offensive line help they need. They also get a lot of help on their defense. You know, with defensive backs that I think is incredibly important for them.
I agree with that 100%. And speaking of LA teams, we go to the LA Rams, who needed themselves. Let's see, a linebacker, an O-lineman, and a corner. Let's see what they got. They got a guard from Wisconsin, corner from South Carolina State. Oh, a MEAC alum. That's good stuff. Let's see, running back from Notre Dame, safety from UCLA, corner from Georgia. Let's see, defensive end from Montana State, a safety from Kansas State, and a tackle from Michigan State. An okay draft. Nothing really jumps out here. Anything jump out to you here?
Nah, other than
they just kind of
took it to the 3rd round, but you know it's expected with the Rams at this point.
I know, right? Waited to the 3rd round. Pretty much just took whoever that they feel like was in need. I'll give them a C, middle of the road. Let's see, Miami Dolphins.
You know, they don't care about draft picks.
Exactly, they don't need to. They just want a Super Bowl, so they don't give a shit. Let's see. Offensive line, defensive line, linebacker for the Dolphins. Let's see what they did.
Another team that doesn't care about draft picks.
Absolutely. As they wait till round 3 and only have 4 picks altogether, they get a linebacker in Channing Tindall from Georgia, a wide receiver from Texas Tech, and Eric Azukanma. Jesus, one hell of a name. Cameron Good, outside linebacker from California. And then quarterback from Kansas State in Skylar Thompson. Very weird. Why would you get a quarterback in the 7th round just to be a backup? That's strange.
Hey, man, you need those arms at training camp, my guy.
Hey, you definitely do when you have Tua's arm as your lead one, I guess. Oh, boy. So they go linebacker, wideout, outside linebacker, and then quarterback. Well, let's see, O-line, D-line, didn't address that. And they did not, and linebacker they did address, but O-line, D-line, they did not. So I'm going to give the Dolphins a D because they don't give a shit.
Well, let's get to your Vikings, bro.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to this bullshit because, first of all, this is a new regime because these people have no self-awareness. Why the fuck are you trading to the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers? Do you not know who the fuck is in your division, Minnesota? What the hell are you doing? Defensive line, cornerback, and TE. Their first pick was in round 1. They reached for a bum safety that no one's ever heard of in Lewis Sign from Georgia. I mean, okay, but You trade back in round 1 for that? That's bullshit. Terrible.
The best part is that they were at 12 originally,
Yes.
so they could have picked Kyle Hamilton.
Could have, and decided to trade with division rivals like idiots. Who fucking does that? That's like Washington trading with the Cowboys. You'll never see that. Or the Ravens giving away a pick to the Steelers. You'll never see that. You know what I mean? I don't get this new regime's thinking. So round 2, they get a corner who I do like, Andrew Booth from Clemson. They get a guard from LSU, okay, but he's only protecting a garbage time quarterback, so I'm not happy about it. We get to Brian Amosa, who's a linebacker from Oklahoma. Okay, we need somebody like that. Another rookie corner, Caleb Evans from Missouri. All right, we'll see who he's got. And a local person. Let's see. Tom Maywu from defensive end from Minnesota. We'll see what he can do. Ty Chandler. I know who Ty Chandler is. We don't fucking need him though because we already have a running back. But I guess in case something happens to him, fuck it, we'll have this guy go out there. Offensive tackle from Illinois. All right. Jalen Naylor, wide receiver from Michigan State. I've seen him play. He's okay, but I'll say this. He's never going to break out as long as Kirk Cousins is his quarterback. So I hope he's ready for a lot of garbage time touchdowns nobody will remember. And then Nick Muse, tight end for South Carolina. Same exact thing. Nick Muse, I hope you're ready for a lot of garbage time touchdowns and blocking that will not lead to a whole lot, except if Dalvin Cook is running. Then it'll lead to something. So they go tight end, wide out. Offensive tackle, running back, defensive end, corner, linebacker, guard, corner, and safety. I'm going to rate this draft an F for what the fuck are you doing, Minnesota. I'll rate it an F. Don't like it. Don't like it. I didn't like Lewis Sign. When you have fucking Hamilton there, when you have McDuffie there, you have credible fucking talent there, but they go back for a safety nobody has heard of. They do get a solid corner, but again, they go back for a guard nobody asked for. A linebacker that's okay, but he was not the best defender on his squad. A corner who was okay, but not the best corner on his squad. A defensive end only drafted because he's from Minnesota. A running back who was drafted because this regime doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. I assume that they think Dalvin Cook's probably going to blow out a leg in 4 weeks, which he won't. Offensive tackle, okay, throw the body on the front. Jalen Naylor, another receiver that'll ask for a trade in about a year when he realizes Kirk Cousins is trash. And then Nick Muse, a tight end who will be a nice cornerstone in the offense. But see Jalen Naylor, and he will be demanding a trade when he realizes Kirk Cousins is shit. So I'm going to give this draft for the Vikings an F. That regime is trash, and I hope the GM... I honestly hope they lose at least 12 games this year, so that way that ownership and GM group gets skull-dragged through the media like they deserve. Going to New England. They need a corner, a lineman, and a linebacker. Cole Strange, guard out of Chattanooga. Why? I guess to protect Mac. Like, why? Tyquan Thornton, wideout for Baylor. All right. Marcus Jones, cornerback for Houston. I like that. Jack Jones, cornerback for Arizona State. All right. Pierre Strong, running back, South Dakota State. Random, but I'll take it. Bailey Zapp, quarterback out of Western Kentucky. Why the fuck? Kevin Harris, running back for South Carolina. Sam Roberts, DT, Northwest Missouri State University. Then they get a center from LSU and a tackle from Michigan. This is just Bill Belichick, and you load up on cheap weapons. You get a couple pieces for the line there to protect your quarterback, and then you just load. You protect the quarterback a little bit, and then you just load up with cheap weapons. This is a typical Belichick draft, and because of that, I'm going to give it a B for Belichick, because that's exactly what this draft was. It was just a Belichick draft for this fucking dog sitting there making the picks.
Moving on to the Saints.
Absolutely. We go into Nolans. They need a wideout and linemen on both sides of the ball. They go
And
Chris.
that's exactly what they do.
Yes, sir. That is exactly what they do. They go Chris Olave wide out for Ohio State. Love that pick. I thought he was going to go higher. I thought a team was actually, New Orleans traded with Washington to get him. I thought Washington was going to get him, but they ended up going with another receiver who we'll talk about a little later. Trevor Penning, tackle for Iowa. They needed him. Alante Taylor, corner from Tennessee, needed him. DeMarco Jackson, linebacker from Appalachian State, needed him. Jordan Jackson, DT from Air Force, needed him. As far as I'm concerned, the Saints got all their needs. I'm going to give them an A just because they hit everything.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent draft class for them. I love the Olave pick.
Absolutely. The Olave pick is excellent, and I expect him to literally start day one. He's going to be a day one guy unless he suffers some debilitating injury, but he'll be day one starter, no question.
Yeah, especially since the Saints still don't know what the fuck is going on with Michael Thomas, too.
I know, right? That is one hell of a mystery right now with Michael Thomas, man. It is a crazy mystery going on with them.
By the way, also while we're here with the Saints, we'd be remiss if we don't mention they signed Tyrann Mathieu, free agent.
Yes, they did. They signed him from the Chiefs, so he'll be slotted into that safety spot. He's probably going to finish his career there, I imagine. Let's see. Going on to the Giants, they need a lineman on the offensive side, linebacker, and a tight end. They go edge rusher, Kayvon Thibodeau, who was on a list for the Ravens, short list. Evan Neal, tackle from Alabama. That's an excellent pick, by the way. Probably my favorite pick that the Giants made was Evan Neal. I like that one. Thibodeau was good too, but Neal was the one they really needed. Wando Robinson, wide out from Kentucky. They get another guard from North Carolina. They get a corner from LSU, tight end from San Diego State, safety from Iowa, linebacker from Indiana, defensive tackle from Arizona State. They get a guard from North Carolina and a linebacker from Cincinnati. Not a bad draft for the Giants. Not anything finesse. I'm going to give them a C, middle of the road.
Honestly, I thought their draft was really, really good.
Yeah,
more on the line of A, actually.
Interesting. I just like the Evan Neal pick. The rest is like they filled needs, but I don't know I don't know how many of those are really going to stick around a long time, but I think a good amount of them will. But the Evan Neal pick, I think, is going to be the one that's going to be a franchise for him, at least. At least he'll be around at least 5-10 years.
Yeah, I can agree with that one.
And speaking of New York, sticking with the theme, the Jets had themselves quite a draft. They actually had one of my favorite drafts, I believe. Sauce Gardner, one of the best corners out of Cincinnati. Number 4, by the way, overall. That just goes to show how important he was. I had a feeling he'd go top 10. Even though really I kind of had him sliding a little bit, but I'm surprised the Jets reached for him that high, but not really a reach. I think in all it was a good pick. Garrett Wilson, I like that one. Wide receiver, Ohio State. Jermaine Johnson, the second defensive end out of Florida State.
Actually, one of the bigger steals. Johnson was.
Absolutely,
he was supposed to be a
he was one that actually I heard a lot of Ravens fans wanted over here, believe it or not, Jermaine Johnson. So he was one they were talking about that they were going to go edge rusher. Breece Hall, running back, Iowa State. Love Breece. He had a very good last season at Iowa State. Jeremy Rucker, tight end out of Ohio State. Max Mitchell, of course, a tackle out of Louisiana, and then defensive end Mike Clemens out of Texas A&M. So overall, I'm going to give the Jets an A. I love their draft. It was my favorite draft out of all the teams, and to be honest, it looks like the Jets are going to give themselves a fighting chance to maybe be a respectable franchise in a couple years. But we'll have to see. It is the Jets after all, so their luck is trash, but we'll have to see, man.
Yeah, we'll have to see, but I like the Jets draft, man. I like their class.
I do too. Going over to the Eagles. Defensive lineman, wideout, and corner. They they steal Jordan Davis from the Ravens, defensive tackle from Georgia. Cam Jurgens, center from Nebraska. Nakobe Dean, I like that pick, linebacker from Georgia. Kyron Johnson, absolutely, linebacker from Kansas. And then a tight end from SMU. I like this draft for the Eagles. Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis are the ones that stand out the most. I am going to give the Eagles I'm going to give them a B for this draft. They didn't pick as much, but still with the picks they did have, they nailed them.
what makes this draft an A for me is the one big move that they made. They made probably the biggest draft trade.
Yes,
with
the
them
A.J. Brown
trading
trade.
back in
Yep.
the first round. They traded their 18th pick back for them to eventually pick up another pick later, but they end up getting A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, they did pick up A.J. Brown, which is huge and actually one of the shockers of the draft. Nobody really saw that one coming. It provides a very good weapon for Jalen Hurts, and it takes away a weapon for Ryan Tannehill, man. A big one for that offense. Gonna be interesting.
Dare I say, is Tennessee moving into a rebuild?
I would say between the moves that they have recently made in the draft and Tannehill's comments recently after that, I would say they are. At least it feels like it.
Yeah, we'll talk about Tennessee in a second when we get there.
Absolutely, we are almost.
More reasons why I say so.
Absolutely, we are almost there too. We're gonna fly through this. The Steelers quarterback, corner, and wideout. They pick with the number 20 pick in the first round. Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pittsburgh, local kid.
First QB off the board.
Yes, sir. First QB off the board. There are many that think he could be a franchise quarterback. I don't know if I go that far, but he will 100% be their starter. He's not,
kid.
absolutely. And what's interesting about this is this draft actually, this pick comes right on the heels of the tragedy that happened to Dwayne Haskins, and unfortunately that tragedy actually left a hole with the Steelers quarterback room because they had Trubisky, they had Mason Rudolph, and then they had Dwayne Haskins. Now they throw Kenny Pickett.
I feel like they would have drafted a quarterback regardless.
Well, yeah, oh no, absolutely, they were going to regardless. But what I'm saying is now that Haskins is not there, because Haskins was going to compete. That was the thing. He was going to compete. But now that, unfortunately, he's not there anymore, now Kenny Pickett can sort of just slide in because Mason Rudolph sucks. He can't fucking compete. He's only there just to sort of be like a placeholder because I think Pickett will start off like number 3 on the depth chart, and then Trubisky will play himself out of the starting spot. They'll let Rudolph play himself out of the spot. They'll let Pickett develop a little bit more. And then they'll finally let Pickett in maybe toward the end of the season. I don't believe he's going to start day one as high as they drafted him, though. And let's see. They also go George Pickens, wide receiver to Georgia. They go defensive. Yep, they go defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. They also go wide receiver out of Memphis, tight end out of Michigan State. Let's see, Mississippi linebacker, and then a quarterback out of South Dakota State, and Chris Oladokun. So very interesting picks. I think the Steelers pretty much hit. Let's see, I think they hit everything. No, the only thing they didn't get was a corner. They did not get a corner, but they did get receiver and quarterback. So I'm going to give them, I'm going to give them a B, just because they got what they needed to get, except for the corner, of course.
Yeah, I like the Steelers draft too. I mean, I think the Pickens one is a steal. Of course, the only question is with him having potential character issues. Are we just going to repeat the same stories with Pittsburgh with them just drafting receivers that are just annoying people?
Yeah, they're just head cases. They love head cases, man. I don't know what it is with the Steelers, but they love.
First was Antonio Brown. Then it was Juju. Now Chase Claypool's kind of turned into that too. So
Hines Ward was that for the longest time too.
Mm-hmm.
So like like you said, man, it's just that Steeler tradition. They love those receivers that act up.
But again, I like the Calvin Austin pick too. He was someone that the Ravens were looking at. The Steelers picked him up one pick before.
Yeah, that was another one they took. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see, the 49ers now, they got a corner, defensive lineman, offensive line. Let's see, they get an edge rusher, Drake Jackson, running back, and Trenon Davis-Price. They get Danny Gray, wide receiver out of SMU. They get a guard from Texas San Antonio, corner out of Toledo, tackle out of Fordham, a DT out of UCF, a corner out of Penn State, and then Brock Purdy is Mr. Irrelevant, quarterback out of Iowa State, their final pick of the entire draft. I mean, hey, they didn't.
No first round pick.
Yeah, no first round pick yet again. They got the corner, they got the defensive tackle, offensive tackle, but offensive lineman, defensive line, but yeah, no first round pick. I'll give them a C.
Yeah, it's just okay.
Yeah, Seattle
Moving on
Seahawks.
to Seattle.
Seattle. Let's see, quarterback, offensive lineman, and a corner. Let's see, they got Charles Cross from Mississippi State, which was a very good pick. I like that. They get an edge rusher from Minnesota, and Boy Moff. They get Kenneth Walker, the third running back out of Michigan State. That's a good one. They get a tackle. They get a corner, Kobe Bryant. They get another corner in Tariq Woolen. Tyreek Smith, edge rusher. Bo Melton. And then, of course, a wide receiver. And then Lenore Ryan, wide receiver. Jake Young. So they get a good amount of weapons, and so they didn't get a quarterback, which was surprising to me. I thought they would maybe look at Malik Willis, maybe look at a Sam Howell, maybe look at a Carson Strong, who ended up going undrafted and actually was signed to the Eagles, funny enough. But yeah, Seahawks did not go for Malik Willis there. They didn't go for the quarterback, which is what I thought they would do. I'm going to give them a C because they got the other stuff, but yeah, no quarterback was a little disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't the most impressive draft.
Right, not very impressive. It was very boring to say the least for them. The Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, they go offensive line, defensive line, and tight end was their needs. Logan Hall, defensive end from Houston, was their first pick in the second round. Actually, they were first pick in the second round. They get a guard.
Yeah, they didn't have a first round pick, but they did have the first pick in the second round. So.
Yes, which is very interesting actually. Let's see. They get a guard from Central Michigan, a running back from Arizona State, tight end from Washington, a punter from Georgia's punter, and Jake Camarada. Let's see. They get a cornerback out of Sam Houston, a tight end out of Minnesota, and a linebacker from LSU. Again, not a spectacular draft from the Buccaneers because it is the Buccaneers after all. So they're just one of those teams that's they're gonna draft for depth purposes most likely. Like for example, they'll mostly draft for depth, but then you'll have a pick like Jake Camarada, who's probably gonna be their new starting punter. But if anything else, everything's pretty standard issue. I'm gonna give them a C, middle of the road.
So that moves us on to Tennessee.
Oh, now this was very interesting. Offensive line, wideout, and running back. Their first pick was a wide receiver in Treylon Burks from Arkansas. Love that pick. Roger McQuarrie from corner from Alabama. That was a good one. From Auburn, that was a good one. They got themselves a Nicholas Petit-Frere, who is a offensive tackle from Ohio State. In the third round, though, pick number 22 in the third round, they get a quarterback in Malik Willis. He finally goes off the board 3 rounds in at number 22, and this immediately sparked the annual tradition of, is Ryan Tannehill going to mentor him? Obviously, Tannehill's like, yeah, that ain't my job. Screw that. He's going to take my job, so I can do it. I know, right? He's like, this guy's going to take my job. I'm not going to help him do it. So it feels like a rebuild is on the way, and it feels like Malik Willis is going to be their franchise. What's interesting about Malik Willis, though, is that he's a project. You know, he has the RG3 capabilities, the Michael Vick. He is Lamar Jackson on Wish, if you want to compare him, like Walmart brand Lamar Jackson, if anything. He is somebody that can develop into a very dynamic quarterback if you build around him and you basically do what Harbaugh's been doing with Lamar Jackson now, which is you flip the whole team over to him and you build the whole team over what he does, at least the whole offense. And if Mike Vrabel is willing to do that, he's got himself something good here with Malik Willis. Now he's a Liberty quarterback, so competition's questionable, but at the same time, he is a polished product, and he's going to be a project for the future. He's a complete quarterback, but in terms of development, he's a project. You're going to have to really develop and put time into creating a game plan suitable to what he does best. He's that type of quarterback. So we'll see if they do that. They get themselves a running back from Michigan and Hassan Haskins. They get themselves Quando, a tight end from Maryland, another Maryland pick. Kyle Phillips, a wide receiver from UCLA. Theo Jackson, corner from Tennessee, another one. And then Chance Campbell, linebacker from Mississippi. So, I got to say, not a bad draft for Tennessee. I'm willing to give them a B because it looks like they are headed in the direction of a rebuild. And at least we know now that they are committed to it because you don't draft somebody like Malik Willis if you didn't have a plan to invest in him as well as invest in the future of the team. Because I have a feeling King Henry will be there. But old
I
Tanner...
feel like he will not be, honestly.
Well, he probably won't. They'll try to keep him, but he probably won't. But one thing we know for sure, Tannehill will definitely not be there. He is gone because you don't draft somebody like Malik Willis just to sit him on the bench and trade him unless they want to be like Green Bay and just draft Jordan Love just to sit there and do nothing.
Now, I will say this, unlike Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, I think the one thing that Malik Willis will benefit from in this situation with Ryan Tannehill around is that I feel like we can guarantee that Willis will not play in his rookie year.
Yes.
And sure, Tannehill won't be mentoring him directly,
right?
But Malik Willis will still get to sit on the sidelines and learn from Tannehill's mistakes, right?
Yeah, that's literally the only way he's gonna have to learn is just to watch Tannehill fuck up and learn that you don't do that.
But hey, that's still a way of teaching. So, and he'll still get to sit on the sidelines. I mean, keep in mind, I think it was a similar situation. You referenced Patrick Mahomes. I don't think Alex Smith was trying to mentor Patrick Mahomes. He was trying to win some games for the Chiefs because the Chiefs were still a playoff team even with Alex Smith.
Exactly.
I think Tennessee's trying to do the same thing, and Ryan Tannehill's trying to do the same thing. But,
and
Malik Willis could still probably learn a thing or two. He's got the same type of, intangible abilities and arm strength and all that, So.
And people have to also have to remember, Aaron Rodgers was not mentored by Brett Favre either.
Oh no.
So right, so you know what I mean. This is tradition at this point. Whenever you bring in the new kid, quarterbacks that say they're gonna mentor him are usually lying. They're just trying to look good for the media.
Joe Flacco never said he was gonna mentor Lamar Jackson either.
Exactly, that is true. Exactly. So it never really works out that way. Quarterbacks who say it only do so they don't harm their image in the media, but none of them really want to do that. None of them really want to mentor somebody to take their job.
Yeah. But moving forward, I like the draft too. They pick up Treylon Burks in the first round, which is a direct replacement for A.J. Brown, who they traded away.
Yes.
Or the exact same pick. And then furthermore, with this draft, or because of this draft, you mentioned about Derrick Henry. My questions about Derrick Henry being there to see the fruits of these labors of this transition is the fact that Derrick Henry's 28 years old, which for a running back is old.
Exactly. So it's a lot of questions as to whether
I only see him staying in Tennessee at most for 2 more seasons. At most.
Right. It's possible. Yeah. But
and I don't think 2 seasons is enough time for us to see the progression of Malik Willis.
No, it's not. It's gonna take more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, though, we'll monitor that. Now for our final team, we go to Washington D.C. for the Washington Commanders. Terrible name. We're gonna go number 1. Let's see. Well, first of all, their needs: wide receiver and cornerback. Of course, they need weapons. They go Jahan Dotson, which is interesting because there was another receiver they drafted named Doxson who ended up being a complete fucking bust from TCU. So now they drafted somebody with a similar name from Penn State. It's almost as if they don't learn. Let's see, round 2. They get...
interesting because Trent McDuffie was on the board.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The Commanders never learn, bro. they never learn. When the obvious is in front of them, they like to go with the hard option. I never know why they do that, but some teams like it that way, I guess. Panarium Dias is was their second pick, DT from Alabama. Brian Robertson, running back from Alabama. Another back that they're putting in the backfield, very interesting. They get a safety in Percy Butler from Louisiana. They needed a safety there to join Cameron Curl in the backfield. Uh, let's see. Now, this is interesting. This was a quarterback I had talked about briefly. He was the quarterback that honestly I didn't like out of all the choices. So it's no surprise that the Commanders drafted him. Sam Howell, from North Carolina. He is not a bum because he actually had a really good season in North Carolina, good season, senior season. My only gripe with this guy is that he's a pocket passer. He's not the modern day quarterback. He's another. He's basically Taylor Heineke 2.0. They basically just drafted a guy who's literally like their starting quarterback now. So that didn't solve any. Well, actually no, because Carson Wentz is their quarterback, but they pretty much drafted Taylor Heineke. So my question is, why did you draft Taylor Heineke 2.0? Like, if you're gonna draft a quarterback, then they should have went for the Ritter. Maybe you go for Carson Strong, who went undrafted. Maybe you go for, well, maybe you try to go for Malik Willis because he slid further enough in the draft for you to think about it. They got this guy at 5, but they had enough picks in round 1 and round 2 to where they could have picked him. And I believe they picked before the Titans in round 3. Could be wrong, probably him, but they had more than one opportunity to get their quarterback, and they wanted to get Sam Howell with the first pick in round 5. It is a typical Commanders move, and it's going to blow up in their face too because Sam Howell sucks. Cole Turner, tight end out of Nevada, that's a good pick. Chris Paul, Jesus, that name is too common in sports. Guard Tulsa, and then Christian Holmes, cornerback out of Oklahoma State. Well, they got their corner. Of course, they wait till the 7th fucking round to get it. They get their wide receiver, which they got with their first pick of the entire draft. But they still raise some eyebrows in my mind because the tight end, okay, safety fine, running back fine. Why the fuck do you draft Sam Howell? I don't understand that. If they were going to go for a quarterback, they should have went for one of the better options, and so that way, if you get a Desmond Ritter, he can develop behind Carson Wentz. If you get Malik Willis, he can develop behind him. You know what I mean? You have good options there. Now you have Sam Howell, who he can develop behind Carson Wentz and behind Taylor Heineke. But here's the problem. He plays exactly like Taylor Heineke, so why would you bother drafting the same type of quarterback? You know what I mean? The Commanders did not progress in that aspect. I'll give them a C, middle of the road, because not the most spectacular draft, but they at least filled the 2 top needs that they had, even though they waited to the last fucking round to fulfill the second one.
Yeah.
So yeah, gonna give them a little C, middle of the road. But yes, folks, that is essentially our preview. Well, not a preview, our wrap up the 2022 draft. I gotta say, overall, it was a draft filled with a lot of surprises. A lot of players slid this year. A lot of them slid. A lot of teams drafted out of the first round, which you don't see often. Quarterback wasn't selected till number 20. And the number 1 pick was literally not known until Roger Goodell was on the podium, which is weird because we usually know who the number 1 pick is at least a week before the draft starts. So this was not a normal draft. This was certainly the type of draft we may never see again. You know what I mean? We may not ever see it like this again, where the first quarterback's taken number 20. In a league where now it's about to become pass happy, quarterbacks are going to be flying off the board in later years. So I feel like this will be the last time we ever see a draft like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, it was just also just an underwhelming quarterback class, too.
And not just that, underwhelming class, period. Because, think about it, there were no star players, man. Like, Aidan Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker were the 2 names, but nobody knew who was going number 1. Nobody knew who was going number 2. So, it was a very, not so, like, rock star draft. It was a draft that got the job done, that served its purpose, but it's not a draft that I say blew anybody, but like blew anybody out of the water. But nonetheless, the draft has concluded, and we are now into the stages where of the offseason where we not only wait for more news, we essentially wait for training camp, which doesn't start till what, July?
Yep.
Yep, so now we are in the official waiting period. And actually, folks, before we get out of here, because we've already been on a while, um, remember, starting in our next episode, we will be going through the NBA playoffs. We're going to be covering the entire playoffs and the NBA finals throughout the off season over here on the off season show, as we call it, at Rush Hour. Essentially, we are going to, I guess, sort of look at other, like, just kind of follow the playoffs since we're watching it, and really just sort of follow the NBA a little bit, at least until the NFL season starts to ramp up. Whenever there is NFL news, we will break it to you guys. We will break it down. We will discuss. But from here on in, at least until I say at least until like preseason or so. Well, really until the end of I say the end of the NBA Finals. We're going to be covering the whole NBA playoffs. We're just going to go ahead and cover it from here on in. But is there anything, B Money, you would like to end with before we get out of here?
No, looking forward to talking about some NBA basketball. I presume probably next week we'll do a little bit of a recap of what's happened in the playoffs so far.
Yes.
And then we'll be looking at the future from that point forward. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk basketball.
Absolutely. And as a little bit of a preview, we actually right now the Mavericks and Suns are currently in the second quarter. They're up. Mavs are up 43, 30, 36. Actually, no, 38. And of course, earlier tonight, the Miami Heat beat up on the Sixers 119 to 103. And we actually have a whole lot coming up. We have, let's see. Actually, yesterday the Bucks beat the Celtics beat the Bucks, made that a series 1-1, and then the Grizzlies beat the Warriors to make it 1-1. But we're gonna talk to you guys a lot more about that next week. A lot of good matchups coming up. Really, there's gonna be games pretty much every day from here all the way until our next show. So, we will have plenty to talk about. We'll have plenty to catch you guys up on. And while talking the NBA playoffs, we will of course update you guys on any NFL news that happens from this point in. Because folks, now that the draft is done, this is the slow time of the NFL off season. So we're gonna keep you guys updated on anything that happens whenever it does. B Money, thank you for joining me as always. And next week we finally get to cover some NBA on the Rush Hour Sports Network. I know you're ready for it. I'm ready for it. I hope all the people at home are ready for it. B Money, thank you for joining me, sir.
Of course.
Of course, man. Thank you for being here. I will see you next week for the first ever NBA episode of the Rush Hour off-season show. Since we're in the off-season, may as well call it the off-season show. But yeah, we will go ahead right into some NBA coverage, and we'll take it from there. And folks, thank you all for tuning in. Let us know down in the comments how you thought your team did. Give me a grade for your team. Give me some feedback on what you liked, didn't like, draft picks you loved, draft picks you hated, reaches, all that shit. Let us all know how you guys feel. Give us your feedback and your review, and we'll certainly interact with you guys. And we will see you next week for more coverage on sports, whether it's the NFL, NBA, and beyond. We are your hookup, folks. Rush Hour Sports Network checking out. We'll see y'all next week. Until then, we gone.